A young nurse bathed a millionaire in a coma, but when he suddenly woke up, something miraculous. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The fluorescent lights of Westbridge Private Hospital hummed softly above the pristine white hallway as Nurse Anna Monroe hurried toward the elevator. Her heart pounded not from fear, but from something she couldn't quite name. She'd been summoned by Dr. Harris himself, the head of neurology, a man who rarely called anyone in person. The echo of her sneakers on the polished floor followed her like a drumbeat. When she reached his office, she paused, straightened her scrubs, and knocked gently. "Come in," came the deep voice. Dr. Harris stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the city skyline glowing under the late-night lights. Without turning, he said, "Anna, there's a patient who requires special care. But this job is not for the weak-hearted." Her stomach tightened. "Who is it, sir?" He finally turned, sliding a thick medical file across the desk. "Grant Carter." She blinked, stunned. Everyone in the city knew that name. Grant Carter, the youngest billionaire CEO of Carter Enterprises, who had built an empire before 35. The same man whose sports car had crashed off the bridge last year, leaving him in a deep coma ever since. "He's still alive?" she whispered. "Barely," Dr. Harris replied. "Most of the staff treat him like a task, not a person. But he deserves more than that. He needs someone patient, steady, and kind. I think that someone might be you." Anna felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. She could avoid the sleepless nights, the pressure, the sadness, but something inside her. Something tied to the reason she became a nurse, after watching her own mother die in a neglected public ward, whispered, "Accept it." She nodded slowly. "I'll do it." Dr. Harris's lips curved in the faintest approval. "Good. Your shift starts tonight." Hours later, Anna pushed open the door to the hospital's top-floor suite. The air was still, almost reverent. Dimmed chandeliers cast a soft amber light over the polished oak furniture. Machines hummed steadily, keeping rhythm with a life hanging by threads. There, in the center of the room, lay Grant Carter. Tubes traced his body, monitors blinked, and the man himself, once powerful, untouchable, looked achingly human. His jawline was sharp, his hair dark against the pale pillow. If not for the stillness, he might have looked like he was only sleeping. Anna swallowed, setting down her clipboard. She approached quietly, her gloved hand trembling as she adjusted his IV drip. The faint scent of antiseptic mingled with lavender from her hand lotion. "Hi, Mr. Carter," she murmured. "I'm Anna. I'll be your nurse from now on." No response, just the steady beep of the monitor. She prepared the warm basin of water, wringing out the towel until it steamed lightly in the air. As she touched it to his skin, a shiver ran through her, unexplainable awareness, as if the man before her wasn't entirely gone. She spoke softly to fill the silence. "You probably don't hear me, but I'll talk anyway. It helps both of us, I think." Her voice trembled with gentleness as she wiped his arms, his face, careful not to disturb any line or wire. "They say people in comas can still hear things," she whispered. "So, if you can, maybe just hang in there, okay?" The heart monitor blipped, slightly quicker, and she froze. Coincidence, she told herself, though a small, fragile hope flickered inside her. As she worked, she caught her reflection in the chrome bed rail-tired eyes, a trace of compassion she refused to lose. Somewhere between her careful movements and his steady breath, something unspoken filled the room, a connection too quiet for words, yet undeniable. And she had no idea that this simple act of care would soon awaken more than just a heartbeat, it would awaken destiny itself. As the days passed, Anna found herself becoming more accustomed to the quiet routine of Grant Carter's care. Every morning she would enter the private suite on the top floor, the smell of antiseptic and lavender filling the air. The machines were always the same, steady beeps and soft hisses, keeping him alive while his body remained still. But today was different. Today there was a new energy in the room. She could feel it the moment she stepped inside. The air was heavier, charged with something unspoken. She checked the monitors, noting that his vitals were stable, but there was a subtle change. His heartbeat, though slow, was more consistent. Could it be? Could he finally be showing signs of recovery? As she moved to adjust the IV drip, she spoke softly to him. I don't know if you can hear me, Mr. Carter, but I've been here every day. I've been here because I believe you'll wake up. I've been here because I care. There was no response, of course. He never responded. But Anna didn't mind. She had learned to speak to him as if he could hear every word. She wasn't sure why, but something in her had formed a quiet bond with him, even though he was unconscious. She gently placed a warm washcloth on his forehead, the coolness of it contrasting with the warmth of his skin. As she wiped his face, she caught herself humming a song her grandmother used to sing. It was a song about hope, about finding light in the darkest of places. She didn't realize she was humming until she felt a slight pressure against her hand. Her breath caught. She looked down, but his fingers remained still. She shook her head, telling herself it was just a trick of her tired mind. But then, it happened again. A soft movement, so slight she almost missed it. His thumb, just barely, twitched against her hand. She froze. Her heart raced. Could it be? She leaned in closer, her breath shallow. Mr. Carter? She whispered. Can you hear me? For a moment nothing happened. But then his eyelids fluttered. A soft, almost imperceptible movement. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Grant? She whispered again, this time louder, more certain. His eyes remained closed, but the rhythmic beeping of the monitor began to increase, just a little. Was this it? Was he waking up? She rushed out of the room to grab Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, you need to come quick. Grant, he moved. His fingers, he moved them. Doctor. Harris followed her into the room, his face skeptical but curious. He checked the monitors and examined Grant carefully. It's too early to say for sure, he said, his tone measured. But we'll run some tests. It's a good sign. Keep doing what you're doing, Anna. Anna's heart fluttered with hope. She had known something was changing. She had felt it. She stayed with Grant throughout the rest of the day, talking to him, keeping him company, just as she had every day since he had been brought to the hospital. As evening fell, she began her usual routine, changing his sheets, adjusting his position, speaking softly to him. You know, she said with a smile, I was thinking today, if you wake up, maybe we can go for coffee. I hear they have the best lattes down at the corner cafe. She laughed softly, imagining him at the small table, the two of them talking like old friends. But for now, I'll settle for just talking to you, she added. The night shift passed slowly, and by the time Anna finished her rounds and the clock struck midnight, she found herself yawning, exhausted, but she didn't want to leave him alone. She stood by his bedside, watching his chest rise and fall with each shallow breath. You're going to wake up, Grant, she whispered, her voice full of quiet determination. I believe in you. She took one last look at him before heading out to the staff lounge for a brief break. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a sense of peace. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the thought that things were finally changing. As she stepped into the break room, her phone buzzed. She picked it up, expecting a message from her mother, but instead, it was a notification from her phone's health app. It was a news alert. Grant Carter, CEO of Carter Enterprises, still in coma after tragic accident. No signs of recovery. She frowned, confused. The timing felt wrong. Had she misinterpreted what had happened earlier? She glanced at the clock. It was just past midnight. She had been with him for hours. And yet, this notification told a different story. The doubts crept in, but Anna quickly pushed them aside. She couldn't let go of the hope that had been building all day. She couldn't. But what was she missing? What had changed, really? The next morning, when she returned to Grant's room, she was met with an unexpected sight. His eyes were open. He was staring straight at her. His eyes were clear, alert, and for the first time he spoke. Anna. Her heart stopped. Grant? She whispered, her voice barely audible. You're awake? He nodded, his voice hoarse but clear. I heard you. As Anna stood frozen in place, staring at Grant, her heart raced. She could hardly believe her eyes. He was awake, his blue eyes clear and alert, locked onto hers. The moment felt surreal. The steady beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence between them, each sound echoing in her chest. He spoke again, his voice rough but steady. Anna. His name came out like a whisper, but it was enough to send a wave of relief through her. She stumbled forward, her hands shaking as she reached for his. You're awake, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I can't believe it. Grant's eyes flickered with something, maybe recognition, maybe confusion, but it was there, undeniable. He blinked a few times, as if trying to adjust to the world around him, before speaking again. "I heard you," he said slowly, his voice hoarse. "I heard everything you said." The words sank in, and Anna's heart swelled with a mix of emotions. She had believed, she had hoped, but now that he was awake, everything felt different. She had been talking to him for so long, and now it seemed as if her words had reached him. She leaned closer, her breath catching in her throat. "Grant, do you remember what happened? The accident?" She watched his face closely, waiting for any sign of recognition. His brows furrowed, and for a moment it looked as if he were struggling to remember. Then his eyes darkened, and he nodded. "I remember, but it's hazy. I was in a car, there was something wrong. I couldn't stop. Then nothing." He paused, swallowing hard. "How long have I been out?" Anna's mind raced as she tried to calculate the time. It had been over a year since the accident, since Grant's car had veered off the bridge and crashed. A year of uncertainty, of waiting. "Over a year," she answered softly, her voice thick with emotion. Grant's eyes widened slightly, as if the time lost was hard to comprehend. "A year?" he repeated, his voice trembling. Anna nodded, her own heart aching at the thought of the months he had spent in that coma. But now, he was awake. He was back. She smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, a year. And you've been in the best hands." She looked at him, her gaze softening. "You've been through so much, Grant, but you're here now. That's all that matters." Grant didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if trying to piece everything together. The silence stretched between them, and Anna could feel her own heartbeat quicken. She had been so sure he could hear her, but now that he was awake, the weight of their connection felt heavier, more real. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Grant spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you stay?" he asked, his gaze never leaving hers. "Why did you stay with me all this time?" Anna's heart stuttered in her chest. The question was unexpected, but she didn't hesitate to answer. Because I believe in you," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I believe in you, Grant. I always have." There was a long pause, as Grant seemed to process her words. The intensity in his gaze deepened, and for a moment, it felt as if the entire world had faded away, leaving just the two of them in that quiet room. Finally he spoke, his voice stronger this time. "I'm not sure I deserve your belief, but thank you." The sincerity in his words struck Anna deeply, and for the first time since his accident, she allowed herself to truly feel the weight of what had happened, of what they had both endured. She had believed in him from the start, even when everyone else had given up hope. She had never doubted that he would wake up, and now, here he was, proving her right. The silence between them was no longer awkward, but filled with a sense of shared understanding. Anna reached for his hand, holding it gently in hers. "You don't have to deserve it, Grant," she said quietly. "You just have to be you. That's enough." Grant's lips curved into a faint, weary smile. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Anna's heart flutter. She knew then that they had crossed a threshold, one that would change everything. There was still much to be done, still healing to be had, but in that moment, everything felt possible. As Anna sat beside him, holding his hand, the beeping of the monitor became a steady rhythm sign that life was returning, slowly but surely. She was no longer just his nurse. She was something more now, something deeper, they both were. And as the night stretched on, Anna couldn't help but feel that, no matter what came next, they would face it together. The days that followed Grant's awakening were a blur of emotions for Anna. She stayed by his side as much as possible, helping him with small tasks as he began to regain strength. His recovery was slow, but every step forward felt like a victory. The doctors were amazed at his progress, but Anna knew it wasn't just the medical care, it was the connection between them. Every word she spoke to him, every touch, seemed to bring him back to life a little more. They spent hours talking about everything and nothing. Grant's memories were still fragmented, but with each passing day, they became clearer. He could remember the accident, the crash, but he couldn't recall much before that. The details of his life, the empire he had built, seemed like a distant dream. Anna knew that his journey to recovery wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. He had to rediscover who he was, and she was determined to help him do that. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a soft shade of pink, Grant turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "Anna," he said quietly, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said when I woke up. You believed in me, even when no one else did. Why? Why did you stay?" His voice was soft, but there was an intensity in his words that made Anna's heart skip a beat. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts before answering. "I stayed because I saw something in you, Grant," she said softly. "Even when you were unconscious, I could feel that you were still there. You were fighting, even when no one else believed you would wake up. I knew that if I believed in you, if I stayed with you, you would come back to me." Grant's gaze softened as he listened to her words, and for a moment, the room felt like it was holding its breath. He reached out and took her hand, his fingers warm against hers. "I don't know if I'm worthy of your faith, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it," he said quietly. Anna's heart fluttered in her chest as she looked at him. There was something so raw, so vulnerable in his eyes, that it made her want to believe in him even more. But at the same time, she couldn't help but wonder, could he really change? Could he truly be the man he once was? Or was this all just a fleeting moment of hope? As the days passed, Anna and Grant continued to build their connection. He grew stronger physically, and slowly, his memories started to return. The more he remembered, the more Anna saw the man she had always known, strong, determined, but also kind in his own way. He started asking her more about herself, about her life before she became his nurse. She shared stories of her childhood, her struggles, and the reason she had become a nurse in the first place. She had always wanted to help people, to make a difference in their lives, and she had found that in her work with Grant. But as much as she had given to him, she realized that he was starting to give something back to her, something she hadn't expected: hope. One afternoon, as they sat together in the hospital garden, Grant turned to her with a serious expression on his face. "Anna," he said, his voice steady, "I've been thinking a lot about what I want for my future, and I know that I can't do it alone. I want you to be a part of it if you're willing." Anna looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Grant took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "I want you to stay with me, not as my nurse, but as someone who's part of my life. I can't imagine moving forward without you. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want you to be there with me, every step of the way." Anna's heart raced as she listened to his words. Could this really be happening? Could Grant Carter, the man who had once been a powerful billionaire, really want her in his life? For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her mind was racing, trying to process what he had just said. Finally, she managed to find her voice. "Grant, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "This is all so sudden." Grant smiled gently, his eyes full of understanding. "I know it's sudden, but I also know that it's what I want. I need you, Anna. I need you in my life. Not just as my nurse, but as something more." Anna's heart swelled as she looked at him. She had never expected this, never imagined that someone like Grant would ever look at her this way. But as she gazed into his eyes, she realized that it wasn't about his wealth or his past. It was about the connection they had built, the trust they had shared. It was about what they could become together. Slowly, Anna smiled, her heart full of warmth. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll stay." And in that moment, everything changed. After Anna agreed to stay, things between her and Grant began to shift in ways she never expected. What started as a professional relationship slowly evolved into something much deeper, much more meaningful. As Grant regained his strength, the walls he had built around himself began to crumble. He started to share parts of his life with her, the moments of his past that had shaped the man he had been before the accident. There was a vulnerability in him that Anna hadn't expected, but it only made her care for him more. One evening, as they sat together in the hospital's private garden, Grant turned to her, his expression serious yet soft. "Anna," he began, his voice quieter than usual, "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About the accident, about who I was before it happened, and about you. I never expected anyone to be there for me the way you have. You've stayed by my side through everything, even when I was completely out of it, and He paused, searching for the right words. "I don't know how to thank you for that." Anna smiled gently, her heart swelling as she looked at him. She had never needed thanks. The connection they shared was enough, but hearing him say, it made her feel seen, understood. "You don't need to thank me, Grant," she said softly. "I stayed because I believed in you. I still do." Her words seemed to settle over them both like a blanket. There was a moment of silence, filled only with the sound of rustling leaves and distant chatter from the hospital staff. Grant reached out, taking her hand in his. The warmth of his touch sent a flutter of nervous excitement through Anna, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his with an unspoken understanding. "I want to make things right, Anna," Grant said, his voice steady. "I know I can't undo the past, but I want to be a better man for you. I want to be someone who deserves your faith." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say something like that, especially not so soon after waking up. It felt as though everything had changed in that single moment, his admission, his sincerity, and his desire to change for the better. For the first time since the accident, Anna allowed herself to truly believe in the possibility of their future together. "You don't have to change for me, Grant," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You just have to be you. That's enough for me." Grant smiled softly, his eyes glistening with gratitude. "Then I'll be the best version of myself that I can be," he promised. As the days went on, Anna continued to care for Grant as he recovered, but their relationship was no longer just nurse and patient. They had become friends, companions, and in a way, two people who had been given a second chance at life, at love. It wasn't always easy. There were days when Grant struggled to remember parts of his past, and there were times when Anna had doubts about whether this was truly the path they should take. But each time those doubts crept in, Grant was there, reminding her that they had already come so far together, and that they could face whatever came next. One afternoon, a few weeks after Grant had woken up, he invited Anna to a small art gallery opening he had organized in honor of her. She was overwhelmed with emotion as she walked through the gallery, seeing the pieces he had chosen, each one representing a different part of their journey together. There were portraits of her, sketches of their conversations, and even a painting of the hospital garden where they had spent so many hours talking. The final piece was a beautiful painting of two people standing together, their hands intertwined, looking toward the horizon. It was a representation of everything they had been through and everything they hoped to become. As Anna stood in front of the painting, tears filled her eyes. She had never expected any of this. She had never expected that her life, her career, would lead her here, to this moment with Grant. But now, as she looked at the painting, she realized that she had found something more than just love. She had found a future, and as she turned to Grant, standing beside her, he smiled softly, taking her hand once again. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "We have so much more to discover together." Anna smiled through her tears, feeling a sense of peace and happiness she hadn't known was possible. She had always believed in the power of kindness, in the belief that love could heal, and now, standing here with Grant, she knew that she had found the proof. This was only the beginning, and the future was theirs to create, together. As time passed, Anna and Grant's bond continued to grow, their relationship evolving from something fragile into something stronger, more real. It was as if the universe had given them both a second chance, a chance to rewrite their lives. Grant had changed. He wasn't the cold, distant billionaire he had been before the accident. He had learned to appreciate the little things in life, the moments that had once slipped by unnoticed. He started taking an active role in his recovery, not just physically, but emotionally as well. He spent hours talking to Anna about his life, his dreams, and his regrets. He had become more introspective, more aware of the impact his actions had on others. One evening, after a long day of therapy and meetings, Grant invited Anna to dinner at a small, quiet restaurant in the city. It was a place he had never visited before, a place far removed from the luxury and opulence he had once known. Anna arrived to find him already seated at a table near the window, a soft smile on his face as he looked up at her. The dim lighting in the restaurant cast a warm glow on the table, the soft clink of silverware and the murmur of other patrons creating a peaceful atmosphere. As Anna took her seat across from him, she couldn't help but notice the change in him. His posture was relaxed, his eyes filled with warmth. There was no longer any distance between them, no barriers to their connection. They were no longer just patient and nurse, they were two people who had been through something life-altering together. And that shared experience had formed an unbreakable bond. As they began to eat, the conversation flowed easily, just like it always had. They talked about everything about the future, about the past, about the small things that made life meaningful. "You know," Grant said, his voice thoughtful, "I never really understood what was important in life until now. I spent so much time building an empire, focusing on success and wealth, that I forgot about the things that truly matter." Anna listened, her heart swelling with affection for him. "I think you're starting to see that now," she said softly. "It's not about what you have but who you have in your life." Grant nodded, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "And I'm lucky to have you, Anna," he said, his voice sincere. "You've shown me what it means to be truly alive, to appreciate every moment, every breath. You've given me a second chance at life, and I don't know how to repay you for that." Anna smiled, reaching across the table to take his hand in hers. "You don't need to repay me, Grant," she said gently. "Just being here with me is enough." They shared a moment of quiet understanding, the weight of their words lingering between them. For the first time since the accident, Anna allowed herself to feel truly happy. She had spent so long focused on Grant's recovery, on making sure he was okay, that she had almost forgotten to focus on herself. But now, as she looked at him, she realized that she had found something more than she had ever imagined. She had found a partner, a friend, someone who understood her in ways no one else ever could. Over the next few weeks, Grant's recovery continued at a steady pace. He began to take on more responsibilities at Carter Enterprises, though he no longer had the same hunger for power and control that he once had. Instead, he focused on building a company that valued its employees, that gave back to the community, and that treated people with respect. He often consulted Anna on business decisions, valuing her perspective and her insight. One evening, as they walked through the hospital gardens after another long day of work, Grant stopped and turned to her, a serious expression on his face. "Anna," he said, his voice quiet but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking about what you said, about who I am and what I want in life. And I want you to know that I'm not the same person I was before the accident. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be better. And I want you to be a part of that, every step of the way." Anna felt her heart flutter in her chest. She had always known that Grant had the potential to be a better man, and now it seemed as though he was finally becoming the person he was meant to be. She smiled, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm with you, Grant," she said softly. "I always will be." He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, and together they stood in the quiet garden, looking up at the stars. It was in that moment that Anna realized how far they had come, how much they had grown together. And though the future was still uncertain, she knew that as long as they had each other, they could face whatever came next. This was only the beginning of their story, and Anna was ready to write the next chapter together with Grant by her side. As weeks turned into months, Anna and Grant's lives began to settle into a new rhythm, one built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and the quiet understanding that had formed between them. Grant's recovery was nothing short of remarkable. His body regained strength, and with each passing day, his memory became sharper, clearer. However, despite his growing confidence in himself, a lingering shadow from his past still haunted him, something he couldn't shake. The pressure to rebuild Carter Enterprises, the company he had once poured everything into, weighed heavily on him. There were decisions to be made, people to be dealt with, and the constant reminder that he was no longer the same man who had once ruled his empire with an iron fist. One evening, after a long day of meetings and phone calls, Grant sat at his desk in the study of his penthouse, his hands gripping the edge of the table. The city lights twinkled below, but his mind was a million miles away. Anna entered the room quietly, a soft knock on the door before she stepped in. She could see the tension in his posture, the furrow in his brow. She knew something was on his mind. "Grant?" she called softly, her voice gentle. He looked up, his eyes tired, but there was a warmth there as he met her gaze. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice didn't carry the usual certainty. Anna walked over to him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone, you know," she said, her words a soft reassurance. "Whatever it is that's troubling you, we can face it together." Grant exhaled slowly, his eyes looking down at the desk in front of him. "I've been thinking about the company," he admitted. "There's so much I need to fix, so many people to answer to. I can't help but feel like I'm not enough, like I can't live up to the man I was before the accident." Anna sat beside him, taking his hand in hers. "Grant, you don't have to be that man anymore," she said softly. "The old you, he was driven by ambition, by the need to control everything. But that's not who you are now. You've already shown me that. You've changed." Grant turned to face her, his eyes searching hers for something validation maybe, or hope. "I don't know if I can fully let go of what I was," he confessed. "But I know I want to be a better person for you, for us, and for the people who work with me. They need a leader who understands what it means to be human." Anna smiled softly, her heart swelling with affection for him. You are a better person now, Grant. And that's all that matters. You don't need to fix everything overnight. Take it one step at a time. He nodded slowly, his grip on her hand tightening. One step at a time, he repeated, as if the phrase itself brought him some comfort. The next day, Grant made the decision to step back from the company's day-to-day operations, handing over more responsibility to his trusted team while he focused on what really mattered. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, and there would be moments of doubt, but for the first time, he felt like he was heading in the right direction. Anna supported him every step of the way, offering her perspective on business matters, but more importantly, offering the kind of emotional support that only she could provide. The bond between them deepened, not just out of love, but out of a mutual desire to create a life that was meaningful, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. It was during one of their quiet dinners at home, after weeks of adjusting to this new way of living, that Grant surprised her with a simple question. As they sat at the dining table, his eyes met hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Anna, he began, his voice steady, I've been thinking about something. You've been my rock through all of this, through everything. You believed in me when no one else did. And I want to ask you something that's been on my mind for a while now. Anna's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, a sense of anticipation building in her chest. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Grant smiled softly, his expression tender, and in that moment, Anna knew what was coming. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Will you marry me? The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Anna could hardly breathe. She had never imagined that this would happen, not in a million years. She had never expected that the man who had once been so distant, so consumed by his own ambition, would be the one to ask her such a question. But now, here he was, looking at her with all the sincerity in the world. A tear slipped down Anna's cheek as she looked at him, her heart full of love. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, I'll marry you. Grant stood up, moving around the table to kneel in front of her, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but beautiful ring, the diamond sparkling in the soft light. As he slipped it onto her finger, Anna knew that their journey together was only just beginning. No matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand. The future was theirs to build, and in that moment, Anna felt that anything was possible. After the proposal, Anna and Grant's life together seemed like a dream come true. Their days were filled with love, laughter, and the sense that they were finally walking the path they were meant to walk together. Grant continued to focus on his recovery, but now he was not just recovering for himself, he was recovering for the future he wanted to share with Anna. They spent weekends exploring new hobbies together, going for long walks through the park, and enjoying quiet evenings at home. But even amidst their happiness, the challenges of Grant's past still loomed large. Running Carter Enterprises was no small feat, and Grant found himself drawn back into the complexities of the business world. As much as he tried to stay focused on the future with Anna, the weight of his responsibilities sometimes felt overwhelming. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult board meeting, Grant sat in his office staring out at the city skyline. The world below was bustling, moving forward with a life of its own, while he felt stuck in the midst of his own struggles. He had made progress, he had let go of some of the control he once craved, but there were still moments when the pressure of the past threatened to consume him. Anna entered the room quietly, a soft knock on the door before she stepped inside. She could see the tension in his posture, the way his shoulders were hunched in exhaustion. She walked over to his desk, gently placing her hand on his. "Grant," she said softly, "I can see that something's weighing on you. You don't have to carry it alone." Grant looked up at her, his eyes tired but filled with a deep gratitude. He had always been the kind of man who carried his burdens alone, but Anna had a way of making him feel like he didn't have to. "It's just everything," he said, his voice hoarse. "The business, the decisions, the constant pressure. It's hard to let go, Anna. I thought I could do it, but sometimes it feels like I'm failing." Anna smiled softly, kneeling beside him so she was eye level with him. "Grant, you're not failing. You've already made so much progress. And you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to fix everything today. One step at a time, remember." She took his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "You've already taken the hardest step by letting go of the need to control everything. And now, you just need to trust that things will fall into place." Grant closed his eyes for a moment, letting her words sink in. When he opened them again, he looked at her with a new sense of clarity. "You're right," he said, his voice steady now. "I've been holding on to the past for too long, trying to control things that I can't change. But I don't want to keep living like that. I want to live for the future for you and for us." Anna smiled, her heart swelling with love. "And we will, Grant. We'll face whatever comes next, together. You don't have to do it alone." As Grant began to relinquish more of the control he once held over his life and business, Anna continued to support him in every way she could. She wasn't just his fiancée, she was his partner in every sense of the word. They made decisions together, faced challenges together, and celebrated their victories together. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and as they planned their wedding, they found that the love they shared was only the beginning of a beautiful life they were building together. The wedding day arrived in a flurry of excitement and joy. The ceremony was simple but meaningful, held in the garden of a small, intimate venue that they had both fallen in love with. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting a warm golden glow over the ceremony as Anna walked down the aisle, her heart beating faster with each step. Grant stood at the altar, his eyes filled with emotion as he watched her approach. When their eyes met, the world seemed to fade away, and all that mattered was the promise they were about to make to each other. "I vow to love you, to support you, and to stand by you through all of life's challenges," Grant said as he took her hands in his. "Together, we will face whatever comes our way, and I will never stop fighting for our love." Anna smiled through her tears, her heart full of love and gratitude. "I vow to be your partner in everything," she said softly, "to be there for you in good times and bad, and to love you with all my heart, now and forever." As they exchanged rings, the crowd around them seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of them in that moment. It was a moment they would remember forever, the moment they committed their lives to each other, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it hand in hand. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, dancing, and love. Friends and family gathered to celebrate the beginning of a new chapter in Anna and Grant's life, and as they danced together under the stars, Anna realized that everything she had gone through, every challenge, every moment of doubt, had led her here, to this beautiful moment with the man she loved. And in that moment, she knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, stronger than ever, with love as their foundation. A few months after their wedding, Anna and Grant had settled into a life they both could only dream of. Carter Enterprises was thriving, but now Grant was leading it in a completely different way. He wasn't the ruthless businessman he had once been. Instead, he was focused on creating a company that valued people over profits, one that prioritized kindness and empathy. Anna continued to support him, offering her insights on both the business and personal sides, but her role was not just as his partner in work, it was as his equal. They had learned to balance their careers with their love, ensuring that neither took a back seat. Together, they grew as individuals and as a couple, facing the challenges of life hand in hand. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their apartment, overlooking the city that had witnessed both their struggles and their triumphs, Grant turned to Anna, his eyes filled with admiration. "I still can't believe how far we've come," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "When I think about everything we've been through, it feels like a lifetime ago." Anna smiled, the warmth of his hand in hers giving her a sense of comfort she had never known before. "We've come a long way," she agreed, her voice soft. "But it's been worth every step." They had faced many obstacles: Grant's recovery, rebuilding the company, the pressures of their personal and professional lives, but through it all, their love had remained a constant, grounding them in the face of uncertainty. They had learned that love was not just about the grand moments, the proposal, the wedding, the celebrations. It was about the quiet moments, the everyday acts of kindness, and the unwavering support they gave each other, no matter what life threw their way. As the months passed, they found themselves thinking more about the future, about their dreams, their goals, and the life they wanted to build together. They had talked about starting a family, but Anna had always been hesitant. She wasn't sure if they were ready yet, or if she could balance the demands of motherhood with her career and her role in Grant's life. But one evening, as they lay in bed, the soft glow of the city lights casting shadows on the walls, Grant turned to her, his face serious. "Anna, I know we've talked about starting a family, and I know it's something you've been hesitant about," he began, his voice gentle. "But I want you to know that no matter what, we'll do it together. You're not alone in this. I'll be right by your side, every step of the way." His words struck a chord deep within her. She had always feared that having children would take her away from everything she had worked so hard for, but Grant's reassurance, his unwavering belief in their partnership, made her realize that together, they could navigate anything. "I've always wanted to have a family with you, Grant," Anna whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I just want to make sure we're ready." Grant smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We'll be ready when the time comes. And I know whatever happens, we'll face it together, just like we always have." In that moment, Anna knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a team, just as they had always done. The love they shared was unshakable, and it would carry them through anything life threw their way. As time went on, they began to explore new adventures, traveling to places they had always dreamed of visiting. They discovered the beauty of the world, together, each experience strengthening their bond. Their life wasn't perfect, no one's life was, but it was theirs, and it was filled with love, trust, and the kind of partnership that most people only dreamed of. One day, as they walked hand in hand through the streets of Paris, a city that had always been on their bucket list, Anna turned to Grant with a smile. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Grant looked at her, his face filled with love, and nodded. "Yes, it is," he said, his voice steady. "This is just the beginning of our forever." As they stood there, surrounded by the beauty of the city and the world around them, Anna realized that the journey they had started together was just beginning. They had already come so far, but there was so much more to experience, so much more to discover, and as long as they had each other, she knew they would be unstoppable. They had proven that love could heal, love could change, and love could conquer anything, and together they would face the rest of their lives, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next, with a love that would never fade, no matter what.